Hello, this is your daily briefing and you are most welcome to it. Slightly off the sort of entire football thing to start off with, but I think this is worth mentioning. Harry Kane posted on his Instagram last night a photograph of his wife, a mother of three and a beautiful girl, and I think quite representative of a lot of our wives and partners. They're hot, but they're not supermodels. And they're certainly, when I say they're not supermodels, what I mean is that they're not subscribing to this ridiculous fantasy of, every woman trying to be as close to kind of Kim Kardashian as possible. And, there's a lot of body shaming and stuff that goes on with kids in their teenage years these days because the internet, simple as that. And it just amused me. It pleased me, but it amused me that you get all these brands that try to attach themselves to players because, if Harry Kane's got one, I'd love it. But just that picture, his wife looked hot. And like I say, I think that most of us have partners who are hot, but they're not Kim Kardashian and they're not trying to be. And Mrs. Kane in her swimsuit, obviously doing the whole glamour pose. I just thought it was fantastic and very real. And there was nothing artificial about it. And I just think that's, that's something to be championed. So there we go. That's my little nice thing for the day. Straight into the football. And if we look at the situation with Pochettino, I can tell you that more and more credible journalists are coming out with the line that he's definitely staying in France. Now that doesn't mean anything. It could just be that dominoes are clacking over and they're all making the same kind of noise. But excuse me, Cesar Luis Merlo, who I mentioned before, is an Italian journalist. He reacted to Fabrizio Romano tweet, which we'll come to next, and he said Mauricio stays at PSG, he's not going to move, trust me. So that's pretty firm. Jason Burt, The Telegraph, he's come out with a very similar line. And Romano, the problem with him is that it's not uncommon for amongst in Italians. A friend of mine was explaining this to me the other day on the phone, to not actually appear to work for anybody. And they're just, as entities, they are sort of respected experts. But Romano, the thing we have to remember with him, and this is a point I'm going to keep making because it's very pertinent to a lot of the places that you and I get our information from. Romano is not a journalist. He's a reporter at best. He just reports on stuff. And so we're in a murky world where we get speculation alongside gospel. And it's really important that we don't lose sight of that. And it's a question of looking at not just facts, but looking at what we know. And I'll throw it in now. I've just had a message from a pal, and something to throw into the mix with Pochettino is that I am given to understand from an extremely reliable source, it would appear, that because we've had this business of Poch living out of a hotel room, and I've discussed that with you before. I don't see that in the modern age as being, the worst thing in the world, because they're not staying in a Premier Inn, outside Watford. They're almost certainly in a suite, and it's hot and cold running everything, and it's not a youth hostel. But there's a reason for that, and that is that Mrs. Poch has no interest in living in Paris. Not in this lifetime, is the suggestion. Now, that's perhaps a situation which you wouldn't expect to resolve itself in so much that, I don't know how your world works, but if she doesn't want to do it, it doesn't get done. And the thing to counter that, I would say, before somebody grabs that and runs off and says, oh, he's definitely coming back because he hates being in PSG and his wife hates the idea of living in Paris. The reality is that he's been there 6 months and he won't stay there forever. And like I referenced Arsene Wenger before, those days are gone, well gone. You know, if you're there for an entire season these days, you've done well. And the way that the press operate, because it's now not just the back pages, but it's every nanosecond there's a little bleep on your phone, you can lose your job in 3 games. It's as simple as that. So this business of, you know, Poch, you know, he could go after 6 months, absolutely. But I would suggest that we reflect on how poorly he would come out of that situation. 6 months is just too quick. PSG are known to hire and fire. You know, they're trying to pass this off as, oh, we've just discovered what monsters, what, you know, dreadful people are running this big club in Paris. They're not monsters. They're businessmen, and they hire and they fire, and they expect, as I used the phrase before, a clean sweep and nothing less. So the last guy out the door, they binned, went on to win the Champions League. So, but I don't see Pochettino staying there forever. And I think he has ambition, and I think he wants to realise he wants to make a more compelling argument for him to be recognised as an elite coach. And right now, he's won 2 pots, but come on, it's the equivalent of the Charity Shield here, so let's not dress this up as... I mean, did he win it in his first week there or something? Yeah, so that was on the merit of 1 game. But the business with him is that if he goes after 6 months, it's going to require a lot of careful wording, not rewriting, but it's going to require a lot of careful wording, because something pretty awful must have happened for him to be wanting to be out the door in such a short space of time, and to tell us that Leonardo is a man with, you know, forked tongue and 6 heads and all the rest of it. He's known as a hard man, and that would have been very clear from the off. Pochettino was only given an 18-month contract in the first instance. So please don't dress this up as, you know, Poch is homesick and you'll never guess what, Leonardo wasn't the nicest guy in the world, because that is just mischievous at best, and doesn't serve any purpose. I can see Poch wanting to move, but I think he knows in his heart of hearts the truth is that he's going to need a little bit more than 6 months under his belt before he's considered to be elite. Elite is Carlo Ancelotti. Elite is Conte, is Mourinho. You might not like those people as individuals, but that's your emotion talking. I'm talking very, very coldly about their CVs. And Poch is not quite in that level. And this is the difference between Daniel Levy and the rest of the footballing world, in so much that getting on this sort of cycle of always being there or thereabouts is not winning. It's great for the books, which is why, and I use the phrase liberally, Tottenham are a Deloitte darling, but they don't bloody win anything. So these are 2 very different things. And Poch now is at PSG. I mean, the idea that he's physically held up one of these things and like, oh my God, and there's pictures of him in the paper. You know, it really happened. That is a totally different reality from the manufactured reality that exists at Tottenham, whereby you loan out a ton of money and you build an enormous stadium and you wander around and go, oh, look at this, fabulous, we're all marvellous, aren't we, top of the pops? But you don't win anything. And you can't keep your best players. And do you know what I mean? Where's the sponsor? Where's the sponsor? So you haven't got a manager. You sacked one of the world's most accredited managers. And we're on day 44 without a coach. Small note here, I think what will be revealing for us, it certainly gathers pace like, wildfire, is Ancelotti to Real Madrid. Again, elite manager and an elite club. It's not complicated. I had a fantastic guest post on the boy HOTSPUR.com this week, and a guy made an excellent point that if you get an elite manager and elite players, you're halfway there. None of this building, none of this, oh yeah, we've got a fabulous academy, yeah, we've got an amazing, nobody's interested. People want football teams and clubs to win things. It's the metric of professional sport. If I'm lying to you, then you need to go to your local golf course and ask them to fill all the holes. Yeah, that's the way it works. But we'll close on this because I thought this was funny, and hopefully you do too. Some random on Twitter at Nola2, and this is him in the voice of Carlo Ancelotti. I won't do Ancelotti's voice because it's a sort of Russian mafia thing. But anyway, as soon as Madrid came for me, I knew it was time to leave. I couldn't bear to wear Lonsdales anymore. The other reason was Duncan made me clean his pigeons out when he went for a barbecue. And there's brackets, the quote came from Marca even in Spain. I thought it was funny anyway. It's very difficult to tell if you're laughing. Right, that's about it. Mrs. Poch has no plans to move to Paris, but in the scheme of things, he isn't going to be doing that commute, for very long anyway. Nobody does. And Harry Kane, massive thumbs up for the picture of the wife. I think that's done the world a little bit of good. So, good luck. Keep it on.